Good afternoon, everyone. 1:30 on the East Coast, a Friday edition of On Cue, coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the SR 1029 FM The Game studios. We are powered by our wonderful friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We got about an hour to play with on a very busy Friday. What the frig Friday, by the way. And we're firing off a little early. We got a lot of hoops, obviously, with March Madness. But I'll be on the call for several hours this evening with other leagues, so I wanted to fire off a little early. Appreciate everyone keeping us locked in. As always, get in on the conversation. Get social with me at Rich Q on Q, X and IG, and of course TikTok, Rich Q on a mic. And of course, download the Sports Radio 1029 FM The Game app, part of the AUDACY family, on a What the Frig Friday. What made you say what the frig on this Friday? And I will say this. A lot of hoops going on, Sweet 16, and then there were 8 to get into the Elite 8, and then we'll figure out, obviously, after this weekend, the dance continues. It's been a wonderful tournament. We'll get into tanking, no tanking in the NBA, all these asinine types of ways to curtail tanking. You got the NFL basically telling Tom Brady, no, stay retired, don't worry about it. We'll catch up with you on the flip side. But as I mentioned, a lot of basketball to start, because if you're not talking March Madness today, then you shouldn't have a microphone in front of your face. I mean, let's just be honest. Last night, really good games, high drama all over the place. Arizona flexing their number one seed muscle, pretty much routing Arkansas, pulling away in the second half, handing Calipari one of his worst losses ever. The Purdue game was fantastic. I know people are going to sit there and say Purdue wins it on the tip-in, wasn't an offensive call, was an offensive foul. That was a wonderful game to watch. Even Illinois doing an excellent job defensively against Houston. And I don't really want to say that's an upset, 3-2, but I thought that was a big win by the Fighting Illini. And the Iowa-Nebraska game was, I thought, an entertaining game for so many reasons, because if you watch the game unfold, it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It really was. That's your prototypical kind of back and forth type of game. And what stands alone to me was the 4 men on the floor. And that, you know, that is kind of like, oh, you got to be kidding, right? We always talk about brutal ways to lose basketball games, right? Brutal ways to lose basketball games. Or really just, you know, you have the signature moment where you're not paying attention. And we saw it last night in that game. And you just cannot, if you're watching that game, if you're on the floor, you got to know presence of mind. You have to know situational basketball. And listen, I think that's fantastic by Iowa. You're going to the Elite 8 for the first time in almost 40 years. You know, that was a game where both teams were just basically back and forth, body shot, body shot, body shot. And then the final 2 minutes, they go on a run, because that's what basketball is all about, 12-6. And I thought it was a fascinating game. But, you know, Nebraska, historic season. And you lose it on the fact that you only have 4 men on the floor at one of the most critical points of the game that opens up a wide open layup. And also, Iowa did a hell of a job with their bench. 38 points, 12 straight when they needed it the most. That's a hell of a win by Iowa. That's a brutal loss for Nebraska, because, again, they had a historic season. I think Iowa's going to be tough, man. I really do. I think Iowa's going to be tough. And then, obviously, the slate tonight, my St. John's, yes, we are Don in the red for the Johnnies this evening. I think they have a puncher's chance to upset Duke. Alabama and Michigan is going to be a fun game to watch. Michigan State and UConn is going to be a fun game to watch. And Tennessee and Iowa State at 10-10 is going to be a fun game to watch. So after this evening, we will have the Elite 8. And then obviously we will bleed into the Final Four. And I'm telling you right now, if you're looking around March Madness, you got some great setup and some great games. And I think it's been a wonderful tournament. We're going to keep diving into it. We're going to open it up, get your thoughts on last night's actions. We'll preview the games, as I mentioned, because of all the March Madness tonight. And I've got back-to-back-to-back calls myself behind the microphone. We wanted to fire off on a What the Frick Friday. No banker hours, as some have suggested. We just fire off because we want to give you guys the fill. We will get into that. We also get into the NBA. The NBA decided that they have 3 anti-tanking proposals. They can fix tanking. They can fix it. And we're going to get into that. And the NFL telling Tom Brady, hey, man, just do us a favor. Stay retired. And oh, by the way, we'll mix in a little baseball because officially MLB is underway. We had a slew of games on Thursday. The Mets with a wild win, breaking it open. They beat the Pirates 11-7. Boston blank Cincinnati. They get the win. How about the Phillies scoring 5 and edging the Rangers 5-3, and then the Dodgers all over Arizona 8-2. So we'll mix in a little baseball, but we start and we'll continue with a little March Madness. The games last night, wonderful. You got some really fantastic matchups, and I think this is why March Madness is a great time of the year. It really is. And I think these teams that are left, and even the games last night, look, we know Arizona is arguably one of the deepest teams in the tournament, and they can easily cut down the nets when it's all said and done. But Purdue plays very good defense. They've got very good role players. Illinois played really good defense. And again, they made some big shots down the stretch. They did a hell of a job in that second half pulling away. And that was a low-scoring game, so you got to grind it out. And then Iowa with a little, juju dust, a little fairy dust, pulling off the win over Nebraska. I'll give you my thoughts on St. John's and Duke. As I mentioned, 37 past the 1 o'clock hour. We're cranking up early on a What the Freak Friday edition of On Q. Don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Check out the promo code On Q20 or BYP20. And as always, get social with us. We're on Kicks, Rumble, Millions, the YouTube channel, as well as X. All right, we'll crank it up on the other side. We'll get it off. As I mentioned, we'll go through these games last night. We'll start to preview tonight's contest as well. Keep it locked in on a Friday edition of On Q, 37 past the 1 o'clock hour on the East Coast and right here on SR 1029 FM The Game. All right, welcome back, everyone. 40 past 1 o'clock hour. Get in on the conversation. You can hashtag On Q, also on the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q. Get social with us, X, IG, Twitter, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic, powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, and of course, Played Against Sports 2 locations. So as I mentioned tonight, we have some really good matchups, and obviously the headliner, the game to kind of start the ball rolling. St. John's at Duke. Well, St. John's versus Duke, I should say, not at Duke, but St. John's versus Duke. Duke's laying 6.5. And I think, Duke is kind of shown a little bit, leaking a little bit of oil, right? They haven't looked dominant over their first 2 games against Siena, right? They kind of pulled away against Siena. And then against TCU, that game pretty much, they didn't look like world beaters, but they did pull away. I think it's going to be a different story tonight against St. John's. I really do. And you got to think about this right now. Look at Pitino's track record in Sweet 16 games, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, he's been to 14 Sweet 16s. This guy, doesn't really lose in Sweet 16 games. He's 12-1. His lone loss was in 2014 with Louisville to Kentucky. And I know, everyone's going to bring the parallels, draw the parallels. Pitino, Kentucky, Duke, Leitner, everything. But that's so many years ago. And I heard Pitino with a great spot with Grant Hill. And Pitino was like, listen, that's a great memory. I mean, we didn't want it to end the way it did, but that was one of the all-time great college basketball games. And to me, I think tonight it's pretty much, can they contain Boozer, right? I mean, he is projected to be a top 3 pick in the 2026 NBA draft. I'm not even going to get into mock drafts, but it's going to be a very tough, tall order to kind of contain him. Defensively, I'm going to see a lot of face guarding tonight by St. John's. I really am. They're going to trap. They're going to press. They need to make this an ugly, low-scoring game. They really do. They need to make it an ugly, low-scoring game. And if they can do that and they can cause some turnovers. Now, I'm a little nervous that they have to rely too much on the point shooting shot, because more times than not, like anything else, if your shot's not falling, you're going to be in trouble. But we know that they have that interior presence. We know that they obviously have players that will take the big shot. It's been evident throughout this tournament. You get the kid Darling that doesn't do anything all game long against Kansas, and he makes his first shot, and it's a game winner, right? We know about their depth. So, Mitchell gives them something. Obviously, Zuby is a big-time player. Hopkins, I believe, will also be the X factor, but this is a team, they can't go 11 of 36, 11 of 37 from beyond the stripe. And the other thing is St. John's has to be really careful with the basketball. They did an excellent job not turning it over against Kansas. They forced 16 Kansas turnovers. We know Duke is a little different animal. They're a little different team. They're a very well-coached team. We know that. They rarely turn the ball over. And the problem that also worries me a little bit is offensively for St. John's, right? Because they have a pretty good effective field goal percentage outside of the top 150. But now you've got a team in Duke that has one of the best defensive efficiencies. And then, that's where it might be a very tough night for Zuby, and he's got to stay within himself, not get in foul trouble, not get frustrated. And that's where you're going to have to get some outside balanced scoring from the role players. And you might see that. Pitino might hit the bench. He might go deep in the bench. Who knows? But I do believe defensively, St. John's has the horses to slow down Duke. It's just offensively, can they match Duke? And that's why I think ultimately it's probably going to be one of the best games of the tournament. Sally Boy chimes in, Q, what'd you think of that Nebraska ending? That was brutal. Nebraska had two of the best defenses in the Big Ten. But Iowa wasn't going to go away. They had multiple runs in this game. And then obviously you saw what happened late with the 4 players on the floor. I just don't know how the hell that happens, to be honest. I really don't. I mean, that's just, I don't know. They said, Hoiberg basically said it was a blunder. It reminded me of the scene in Hoosiers, right? Gene Hackman turns around, he goes, my team's on the floor, right? Playing with 4. They were down 3. A minute left, right? And you cannot, if you go back and rewatch that game, and I feel for the Cornhusker fans, I feel for Nebraska fans, but that is a blunder of all blunders. You've got 58.8 seconds left. And this is, again, following a timeout. And we always say this. I don't care if it's the NFL, high school, college. You come out of a timeout, you get a false start, you get a delay game, unacceptable. NBA, you come out of a timeout, you turn the ball over as soon as you put it on the floor, unacceptable. Nebraska somehow sends out 4 players on defense. Inbounding under his own basket, you saw Combs launch the pass to the opposite end, and then the kid's pretty much wide open for an easy layup. And that was pretty much it. 74-68. And they go on to win 77-71. It's inexcusable. And yeah, it goes on Fred Hoiberg. And I don't know if he was pulling a Gene Hackman. My team's on the floor. And you know what's really bizarre? If you go back and rewatch it, TBS had no idea what the hell was happening. The announcers didn't even notice it until they went back to the replay. And I think it might have been Van Gundy's like, wait a second, I think Nebraska only had 4 defenders on the floor. That's a heartbreaking loss, and it's got to sting. And look, when the dust settles, Nebraska had an unbelievable season. They won 28 games. They won 15-5 in the Big Ten. They ended the program's NC tournament wins drought by beating Troy and then Vanderbilt, and they were right there with Iowa. And Iowa now knocks out number 1 seed Florida in the second round. They're going to play on Sunday for the first chance at their first Final Four since 1980. But that was a bizarre ending to a crazy game last night. But that is also the beauty of what we're seeing with March Madness, right? And I'm not talking about the blunders per se, but just how these games come down to the very end. They really do. Sarge chimes in. Q, what's the rule of thumb here? We're talking about the NBA for tanking. Do you think they're going to come up with a plan in place? I saw some of the proposals. I'm not in line with any of them. Yeah, so again, the NBA thinks they can rewrite the game. The NBA thinks they can reinvent the sport of basketball. These anti-tanking or anti-tanking proposals, they're radical changes. They are. And they have pretty much, one X factor, one thing in common. Bringing teams that make the playoffs into the lottery process. From there, they change dramatically. So you got the first proposal, right? 18 teams. The bottom 10 that missed the play-in tournament and the 8 that qualify for it will all be part of the draft lottery. The bottom 10 will all have an equal 8% chance of moving up in the lottery, with the remaining 20% of the odds being split among the 8 play-in teams in descending order from 11th through 18. All 18 spots would be drawn as part of the lottery in the format. Second proposal, now all of a sudden you're talking about the play-in tournament, 8 that qualify for it, 4 playoff teams that lose in the first round, so forth and so on. And then you got the third proposal, which is 5x5 method. In this one, the same 18 teams from the first proposal, the bottom 10 that missed the play-in plus the 8 that make it would be entered into a lottery. The teams with the 5 worst records, yeah, you need someone to break this down too, would then all have the same odds with them descending from there, and there would be a lottery drawing for each of the top 5 picks in the draft. Now, so let's just go by right now. Look at these teams right now. If any of the teams with the 5 worst records didn't land one of those top 5 spots. So last season, the teams with the first, Utah, second, Wizards, fourth, New Orleans, worst records all moved back to 5th, 6th, 7th, respectively. What the NBA is trying to do right now is the NBA, the product stinks. The product stinks. And I feel as though at this point, Adam Silver is just, he has absolutely no idea what the hell he's doing. Like, tanking is only in the spotlight because of the draft class that is right on the cusp. Because the current draft lottery system, I think you can update it slightly, or you change the odds of the team being allowed to receive a better draft pick year after year. But I don't need this 18 to 22 team lottery. It makes no sense. Nor, at the end of the day, it doesn't, none of what Adam Silver is trying to come up with is going to prevent, tanking at all. It's just not. No matter what, you can work around that. You can work around that. Listen, you go back to 2024, ratings were down 30%. 30%, right? And ultimately, I just don't think the product's very good. And the product turns off the novice fan. And I just basically, Adam Silver to me should just say, look, I'm not going to fix tanking. I can't do it. Because I feel as though you're just trying to reinvent the wheel with everything he's doing, and it makes absolutely no sense. He's not a good commissioner. He's not. There are some teams that are just bad. Honestly, they're just bad. They're not trying to tank, but they're bad. Look, you're a Nets fan. It's been a rough couple years. The draft at least gives you some hope, right? But you're looking at a team like Dallas, San Antonio. The Sixers get rewarded because, despite having 2 to 3 All-Stars, so now you want to tank again? He doesn't care. What Adam Silver has a problem with, he just doesn't like the look of tanking. That's it. That's all it is. He doesn't like the look of tanking. Okay? And I'm telling you, I can't run that by you one more time. No, I can't. And David Stern is rolling over in his grave. Because it's giving me a headache trying to go through this. It just makes no sense. It really doesn't. Maz chimes in. I don't know what the blank Silva's trying to do. You take the first 20 games of the season, last 20, and you go by that overall record. That prevents teams from tanking. You get more accurate representation of the actual deserving teams that are truly not good. Benny chimes in. Q at the bottom line is this. Adam Silver has already ruined the league. Why is he ruining it even more? Who gives a shit at this point with tanking? It's not even that. It's not even that. Okay? I'm not going to reward you for throwing in the towel. But how do I really know you're throwing in the towel? Right? So you're rewarding for losing, but you can't get rid of tanking. You can't do both. That's the problem. The NBA is goofy. It is. So let's solve it and have bad teams get top picks, right? And then I feel as though they're winging it. I really do. I really do. And the union's going to have a say in this as well. I agree. Like some of you guys already pointed out. KB chimes in. Q, I don't like any of these 3 suggested changes to solve tanking at all. Zachy Boy chimes in. Hate all 3. Q, the problem with tanking is that the final 2 or so months of every season, there are many non-competitive friggin' teams out there. Like you just carved them out right now because teams are actively trying to lose. How about this, Q? The NBA needs an anti-tanking concept that incentivizes and rewards winning through all 82 games. It's just a fine line. Like, there's bad basketball, but can I sit there and tell you that it's because these teams are throwing in the towel or they're just bad, poor teams? People for years thought Detroit was just a bad basketball team. Well, guess what? Now, all of a sudden, Detroit is one of the best teams in the NBA. They're certainly one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, and you can make the case they are the best team in the Eastern Conference by record by being 53-20. But I can't suggest that they were tanking all those years. Indiana lost Halliburton. They're going to struggle. The Nets have no clue. The Wizards, again, no clue. Trading pieces off, right? They don't have really any pieces to speak of. Sacramento is a bad basketball team. Utah is a bad basketball team. They are. They're not good. You lose 55 games in an NBA season, you stink. But they actually have some players, the Jazz do. Believe it or not, they do. They got a couple players. But it's a bad product. It is. They play no defense. It's Matador defense. Everyone's chucking up threes. You can't find half these games. That's another thing. I mean, don't even get me started. Like the whole Netflix thing the other day with baseball. That was an absolute debacle. It was. You're trying to draw in younger fans, so let's speed up the game. The NBA, you're trying to draw in younger fans. Let's fix tanking so the fans don't go anywhere because they know that there's always going to be a bad product on the floor. You can't do anything about it. You just got to deal with it. You just can't. You can't do anything about it. You're not going to penalize teams for losing, and you're not going to reward teams for losing. You're just not. You're just not. It's just get rid of, at the end of the day, get rid of the lottery and shorten up the friggin' season so you don't have to worry about, the load management. You don't have to worry about the 20 games when a team's 30 games under 500 where they're not going to show up. Like, do that. Seriously, do that. Frank chimes in, Q, I know you're talking NBA, but did you see that new Fox News poll finding 70% of sports fans think sporting events should be required to stay on free broadcast television? Well, people had a problem the other day with, MLB on Netflix. But as we talked about over the years, and I told you guys this, everything's going to go to a la carte. Look, I have Netflix. Obviously, you guys know that because I, again, have a lot of shows that I like to watch. People want to sit there and get on. It was unwatchable. It was embarrassing. The broadcast was bad. Interviewing Manfred was an absolute joke. Bad. Everyone's going to have their own opinion with everything. Okay. I mean, it is what it is. This is what you get. When they start to put these fights on Netflix, you're like, come on, man, they're hiring people that have no idea about the fight game. I mean, it was a swing and miss. It was a swing and miss. Like, here's the problem I have with what's going on now with the Amazon Primes and the Netflix of the world taking on live sporting events. They're trying to make it so sexy and enticing that they need to just go back to the meat and potatoes, the heart of it. I don't need a mid-game interview, okay, instead of the first ever ABS challenge in Major League history. Like, come on. You're showing me a mid-game interview instead of the first ever ABS challenge in MLB history. What are we doing? All we talked about in the offseason and the winter meetings, the ABS, here we go. This is going to be, really unique. Here we go. And it was unwatchable. It was unwatchable. And you're talking about a streaming giant that let's dip our toe into baseball. And it was rocky to say the least. And I'm not gonna pick on, right? I'm not gonna pick on the anchors per se. Okay? I'm not. Because they hire who they want to hire. But if you're gonna interview Rob Manfred, you have to. You got to kind of go at him with certain things. And, backlash, be damned. Be damned. Like, there's some questions that are asked. It's almost like some of these sideline reporters. Some of these questions that are asked that, I mean, you want to talk about softball? That's embarrassing. Embarrassing questions. And you have to do better. When you have an opportunity to interview the commissioner of baseball, and we kind of know he hates the friggin' sport. I mean, everyone knows that. He doesn't care about baseball. And I'll try to tell you that he does. No, he doesn't. He does not. He does not care. What he cares about is revenue. That's it. That's it. I mean, but, if you're Manfred, it just, you can't, I'm sorry, you can't partner up with Netflix. You can't. You just can't. The whole thing was embarrassing. I thought it was weak. I thought it was pathetic. I thought the interview was an absolute joke. Some of the questions that were asked. If you have that microphone, you have an opportunity to interview a commissioner that's been under fire, a commissioner that people believe should not hold that title, being a commissioner of baseball. You cannot ask him softball, 6-year-old friggin' questions. You can't. You can't be there, kids say the darndest things. You can't. You had a bunch of promos and a tiny scoreboard. I mean, come on already. Come on. All I wanted to do, I want to watch the game. I want to watch baseball. I want to watch the football game. I want to watch the NBA game. I don't need to be overwhelmed with all this other nonsense. I don't. Simplify. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. I don't need someone to conduct interviews in McCovey Cove. I don't. What the hell does that do for me as a baseball fan? It does nothing. And they signed a 3-year deal with MLB. It's like 220, 260 million. I got to deal with this crap. And by the way, baseball made their bed, now lie in it. Van Scourgeon and CC asking these, oh, come on. I don't even think that interview was, 2 minutes? It was like 90 seconds? Maybe? Oh, my God. You got to go at them. And I get it. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to do that. They don't want to, where they eat. But come on, man. That was embarrassing. It was. It was embarrassing. Javon says, I will say the NBC broadcast between Mets Pirates was really good. NBC has figured something out with their sports coverage lately. Because you know why? It's a broadcast network. It's a broadcast network. They know exactly what they're doing. There's no issues there. But go watch the Amazon Prime. It always buffers. Go watch Netflix. The buffering, the streaming. There's always an issue. There's always an issue. I get there is this fine line that you have to walk, right? It's like when you're working for the NFL Network and Eisen's up there, he's not going to hammer Roger Goodell. He's just not. He's not. But man, I'll tell you something. If you got an opportunity to ask the right question or dig a little bit, then you have to. And I'm not saying that and a guy like Eisen's not going to do that, but I do think sometimes you have to ask questions that the fan wants to know. I mean, CC, what are we doing here, CC Sabathia? I mean, honestly, talking about a mercy rule, what the frig is that? What are you, 6? Seriously, did someone tweet that in? Come on. That's just a joke. I mean, and the other thing is, again, the booth had little time to kind of grow him. And the thing is, there was just enough time to CC to get, let's talk about the mercy rule. Right? I mean, you want to talk about softball questions. Hey, let's do a 10-run mercy rule in regular season, right? Because of the walk-off moments in the WBC. And, to Manford's credit, he answered it. I don't know, man. What are these hard-hitting, right, questions? Like, come on, man. Get into PEDs. Get into the gambling stuff. Get into, the inconsistencies at the plate with these umpires. Get into maybe shortening up the season. Is there going to be expansion, right? I mean, there's a lot of questions that could have been answered. A lot of them, right? I.e., hey, Commissioner Manford, what about these friggin' local broadcasting blackouts, right? Because nobody wants to sit there on a nice Thursday afternoon or weekend having a little pop or, your iced tea or your beverage of choice, and all of a sudden the game's friggin' blacked out. That's embarrassing. Come on. Regional Sports Network dropping the ball. That's you can't allow that, man. You're losing fans, right? Then get into labor relations. Talk about that. Talk about, oh, by the way, the biggest elephant in the room, the impending friggin' lockout that's on the horizon. But no, we don't. Let's just ask him about a 10-run mercy rule. You're coming out of the gate with that. Do you believe we'll have a season next season? Do you believe there will be a season after this one? What's the latest? Are you fearful that there's going to be a lockout? Are you fearful labor relations are lost? Get in that. Get in that. How can you take some of these small market teams that are financially struggling? How can they compete with this ever-changing landscape of baseball, seeing what the Dodgers are doing and the spending that the Mets are doing? My God, get your head out of your ass. Asking a question like a friggin' child, a 2-year-old. 10-run mercy rule. DB, how are you? It's not. DB is DB. Next thing you know, see. Oh man, that's not right. That's just not right. Like Mayhem, the Allstate commercial, you know, the parent at the game. You ever see that commercial? All right, quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. You know the other thing that annoys me too, because we know the players are going to go on strike. You know there's going to be a lockout. You know it. You know it. And by the way, the ABS is the automated ball strike. So now you can challenge the umpire ball and strike. Players, pitcher, catcher, or batter can challenge twice per game. Remember when baseball, we never took out the human element? Remember? We just never took out the human element. So this is now, I pulled up the numbers. The MLB automated ball strike system saw a 61% success rate in opening games. I'm going to have to take the long view because it was only game 1 of 162. Now, go back to the Reds game against Boston on Thursday. Terry Francona saw Suarez on a full count overturned to a strikeout in the 4th inning. And then Connor Phillips had that 9th inning strikeout of Roman Anthony, also on a full count, overturned to a walk. So mentally, your mindset, if you're a pitcher, don't get used to thinking the inning's going to be over. I mean, it's just, you got to stay dialed in. You have to. So 61.3 success rate on challenges, 19 of 31 through the first 12 games of the regular season. Using Hawkeye, not Pierce Hawkeye from MASH, technology, 12 cameras measure whether a pitch crosses the strike zone with accuracy of about 1/6 of an inch. Tom and Summers, 0.1 down, 161 to go, Q. Yeah, because the Phillies got to win on opening day. The Mets are always a good team on opening day, by the way. That's a good team to bet on opening day. Just historically, they never lose on opening day. Yeah, the Phillies, look, Phillies got the Mets. I mean, how about the Mets? How about, knocking out that kid early on in that one and just errors left and right? What a brutal game. What was that kid, Cruz in the outfield? That's as brutal as a game you can have. Just errors left and right, not seeing the ball, drop fly balls, open up the floodgates. And yeah, the Mets got a nice win. That was a high-scoring game. 11-7, but they broke that game open. In the first, they scored 5. And then we tacked on 3 in the 5th. So that's a good job by the Mets. Phillies got to win. Boston got to win. Yankees got to win. Here we go. I told you the White Sox were going to stink. I told you right now they're going to be the worst team in baseball. They lost 14-2. So, yeah. You got some baseball on the docket. Mark and Wildford chimes in. Q, I think St. John's does have, as you say, a puncher's chance. They just got to really D up. I'm a little concerned like you are with their three-point shooting. They cannot rely on the three-point shot alone tonight. They can't rely on the three-point shot tonight. They just can't. They can't. They need to figure out a way to work the ball inside. Zuby can't get frustrated. They got to face guard. They got to press. They got to trap. And they can't turn the ball. Can't turn the basketball over. They can't. If they turn the basketball over, they're not going to win this game. They're just not. The first 6-7 minutes of this game, you're setting the tone. And we see that a lot, especially now that you're getting in crunch time. Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final 4. Every possession is key, but they can win the game. I would love nothing more. In a perfect world, you exercise, you slay those Duke Demons. And by the way, I said this last week. I said this, I think, on Monday's show. I think Pitino might be the greatest men's basketball coach of all time. I really do. Forget about all the scandals and stuff. Like, who doesn't have a scandal? Who doesn't love a scandal? And this team is not the best shooting team from the floor. They're not the best three-point shooting team. It doesn't matter. They went 30-6 because they're physical. They're fearless. They're decisive. They got dogs on the floor. And Pitino has, he takes his character, his mold. Come on, man. You got 3.9 left. And you let a kid who's done nothing all game long put it on the floor with his right hand, dribble drive right to the basket, and game over against Kansas. I mean, come on, man. Because Pitino has all the confidence in the world of his players. He finds a way. This team finds a way to win. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. If you go back, that 2012-13 Louisville team, they shot 33 from beyond the arc, which was like 216th on a national level. Yet, they won the national title. Remember, they lost it the year before. They got bounced early. Everywhere this man has gone, he has changed the culture. So to Mark's comment, yeah, they have a very good shot at winning this game tonight. They really do. It wouldn't be a monumental. This is not, Chaminade beating Houston in Hawaii in the Maui event. No, this is not Villanova taking down Georgetown in 85, but it would be an upset. It really would. And I think at this point, winning first two, getting those first W's out of the way and getting to the Sweet 16, something I haven't done since 99, I think at this point, everything else is gravy. Now, perfect scenario for me tonight. Obviously, I'm calling my games. My eye on this game. But I would love nothing more. Obviously, St. John's gets the win. But, oh, my goodness. If Michigan State can find a way to just shut up Hurley and get him the frig out of the tournament, I will be ecstatic. I will be absolutely ecstatic. I would. I would love it. I would write home about that. To me, that would be the perfect scenario. Perfect scenario. I would write home about it. Absolutely perfect scenario. I don't know what you guys are talking about with the Death Star microphone. Death Star microphone's fine. I hear myself in my ear. Boom. Bluetooth. We're good to go. All right, quick timeout. We'll come back. We got about 15 to play with. We'll get to the games. We'll go over the lines. We'll get some more of your comments as well. Keep it locked in on a What the Frig Friday. By the way, I saw a couple What the Frigs that made me kind of laugh. And I got to pull up a couple of those. Hold on. Some of the stuff is just remarkable this weekend with the What the Frig. So I saw, this is not even on the World of Sports, but I saw online Easter was canceled, and Easter Bunny actually got in a little shootout with cops. He was dressed as the Easter Bunny, so I don't know what the hell's going on there. All right, we'll get some more of your messages on the other side. All right, let's go through these games before we get out of here. I mentioned tonight, Duke laying 6.5. Michigan laying 9.5 against Alabama. Michigan is a really good team. They play both ends of the floor. Look, the Howard game pushed a little bit. St. Louis game, they blew them out. Different animal tonight. It's a different animal tonight. Arizona with that win last night, they are the odds-on favorite to win it all. But for Michigan, a little bit of a different animal this evening. But where I think Michigan, they've got 3 or 4 guys on the floor, whether it's Johnson, whether it's Mara, whether it's Lindenborg. These guys can score, man. They can score, and they don't turn the basketball over. That's really the key with all these games, because possessions are going to be so sparse. But I think Michigan can keep this game. I think Michigan can. I know they're laying 9.5 in this game, but I think it'll be close to start. It will. I don't like Michigan covering. I think it's going to be a little more closer, but I can see them pulling away and winning this game by 4 or 5 late, maybe knocking down some free throws. Alabama's not a slouch. And they blew out Texas Tech. Now, maybe that was a little bit of a fluke with the seeding for Texas Tech being that 5 seed. But that game, for all intents and purposes, they were up by like 25 points heading into the locker room. They got out, they ran, they pushed. That's the pace they want to run. They want to get out. They want to get out. And that Wrightsell is a good player. Allen's a really good player. They get production from the bench. Again, they don't really turn the basketball over. They're a pretty damn good 3-point shooting team. So this is a real good matchup. It's one of the reasons I think this game is more closer than that 9.5 suggests. And then UConn and Michigan State. Look, Michigan State. It is amazing when you think about the run that they have had. It is. It's really remarkable. That team is the equivalent of basically Steady Eddie. Because of their coach, because of their coaching staff. They're well coached. That's a disciplined team. This, to me, besides Duke and St. John's, this might be the game of the night. I really believe that. I really believe that. Now, the good thing is, these teams play a little exhibition. They didn't have to deal with a couple players. Michigan State didn't have to worry about a couple players, right? They didn't have to deal with Reed. They didn't have to deal with the freshman guard about 5 or 6 months ago. But now all of a sudden they're back. They throw a different lineup, a little wrench, if you will. Reed 6'11", 265. He's not the same player that spent his first 2 seasons at Michigan, right? But he's playing the best basketball of his career. That Furman game, right? 31 points, 27 rebounds in the first round. That's absolutely crazy. Michigan State, again, they're not Furman, right? So you got a player or players that are threats to take over the game. Jeremy Fears, to me, is a big-time player. Carson Cooper is a big-time player for Michigan State. I think they can. You got some guys that can play off the ball. You got guys that can play, 3 or 4 different positions, right? They can all shoot. They are a guard heavy. They are a very good shooting team. But again, it will come down to that inside-out emphasis. And it's can Michigan State crash the boards? Can Michigan State win the battle on the boards? Can they win the battle on the glass? I think they can do that. Now, I know a lot of people are kind of setting it up where it could be, a all, Big Ten Final Four. But this, to me, is a 70-66 type of game, 68-64 type of game. Michigan State needs to keep it right around there. And UConn, I'm just so tired of seeing Hurley. He just gets on my last friggin' nerves. He really does. He gets on my last friggin' nerves. I just cannot. I am not a Hurley fan. I'm just not. Now, a lot of models project this to be 136.5 and it hitting the over. So if I'm giving you 68-65, well, guess what? We're a touch shade under. I think Michigan State's going to have more balanced attack. I can see 3 or 4 players with 10 to 15 points, and I think one of them is going to be Fears, who's averaging about 14.4. Yes, Connecticut is a well-coached team. Yes, Connecticut is a well-balanced team. But I think you saw a little bit when you are physical with Connecticut, when you are physical with UConn, like St. John's was, they don't like that. They did that in the Big East tournament. I'm not talking about earlier in the season. I'm not talking about the game where UConn won like 72-40. I'm talking about the Big East tournament, the Big East final, the Big East championship. St. John's was just a more physical team. They were able to get on the low block and just basically move guys around, right? Now, if you're kind of going back, and again, we're talking about, just kind of the body of work, right? Michigan State, to me, they've got that pedigree. And yeah, UConn certainly has that pedigree. And I thought I was waiting to see if the line was going to move to maybe take a flyer on this game. And I don't want my bias against Hurley to disrupt my thinking here. UConn was laying 1.5. It's bumped up to 2.5. It'll probably sit right around 2.5, 3. If Michigan State, if Michigan State, if Fears goes off, Michigan State's winning this game. If UConn can contain him, that's a different animal. That is a different conversation. If they can contain him, because he's the best distributor of the basketball in the country, and he doesn't turn the basketball over. He just doesn't. I mean, his numbers are staggering. They really are. I mean, go back and see what he did in the second round against Louisville. It's crazy. Now, again, I'm not going to go back to that exhibition, but if they contain him, frustrate him, then I think they're going to have an opportunity to win this game. And they also have to take smart shots. Anytime you go up against teams that are very good on the glass, you go up against teams that can clog the paint, you go up against teams that are very good rebounding teams, and Michigan State is one of the best rebounding teams in the country, you better knock down your friggin' shots. You got to limit, just limiting offensive rebounds, right? So think about it. If you're UConn, not only do you knock down your shots, but you also box out against Michigan, who's a really good rebounding team, and limit their second chance opportunities. Every possession is going to matter in this game. And like I said, I can't stand Hurley. I can't. But I'm going to grab Michigan State tonight. Tennessee and Iowa State, depending upon what time I'm off the air, I'll just maybe kind of wink at this game a little bit. I think it starts at 10-10, 10-15. Iowa State's laying 4.5 in that one. But you have some great matchups, and then that'll bleed right into the Elite Eight. We already know tomorrow it's going to be Iowa, Illinois, and Purdue and Arizona. And those games are 6 o'clock and 8:49. So, should be fun. It's Duke's year. I can't do it. I can't. You're only saying that because Florida's out. I think St. John's knocks them off tonight. Duke didn't look like world beaters against Siena, and they didn't look like world beaters against TCU, and St. John's is a physical team. Zuby has to play within himself because they're going to contest and challenge his shots. And I think defensively, St. John's finds a way to win the game. I don't care how you get it done. But I do like Michigan State. I do like Arizona. Purdue is going to be a hell of a game. That's going to be a fun game to watch. I'm going to lean Michigan, low-scoring game. Iowa State, Tennessee. I don't really have a feel on that game. I really don't. Iowa coming down that high of beating Nebraska. They got Illinois, who plays really good defense. I mean, think about it. Illinois scores 75. Nebraska scores 74. That might be kind of a 75, 73, 78, 75 type of game. Jody, Philly chimes in. Q, I was actually impressed with some of these opening day games yesterday. I don't think some of these teams that you mentioned are going to be as bad as you thought. It's one game into the season, Joe. What are we doing? Got 162, brother. I'm not going to get excited or giddy. Why? Because the Yankees beat the Giants? I mean, Aaron Judge, can you wake up a little bit, please? The Phillies got to win? Okay. What does that mean? Seriously. Baseball fans are funny, man. You know when the baseball season really starts? It starts in July and August. It does. Your season can end in May and June, but it really, you just kind of know where you're at. July, trade deadline, right around the corner. August, boom, stretch run, pennant races. It's kind of like the NBA. I got to wait till Christmas. I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about. One game in a friggin' season already. Talk to me. You want to get my honest assessment of the baseball season? Wait 25 to 30 games. And that still doesn't mean anything. Because how many years did we see the A's struggle in April, May, and June and then go on a run in July and August? Look what just happened last year with Miami Marlins. They stunk. But they actually were playing 6:30 ball across their last, I think, 76 games. So talk to me after like 25, 30 games, guys. That is 100% true. Florida, that way. Q going Red Storm look tonight with the hoodie. Yes, I am. Thank you for recognizing it. Now you're thinking with your heart. No. I am not. It's only objectivity. Come on, man. Come on. St. John's plus 6.5. I think it's going to be a white knuckler, Joey. I think it's going to be a white knuckler. I think this game's going to come down to the final couple possessions. Can St. John's get that turnover? How many times are they going to highlight or replay Leitner's shot? Which I told you guys a story. I'm literally walking in with about 5 minutes to go in that game, walking in from movie night. Yeah, that's right. And my father was like, where the hell you been? You're missing one of the best games of all time. And it was. It was. That Duke Kentucky game, Sean Woods basically banking it off the glass. That Duke Kentucky game was an all-time great game. It was. You just couldn't ask for anything, even when you go back and you watch it. And that's why I give Pitino a lot of credit. Pitino's like, hey, man, I'm treasuring that game. Take it as a positive. Now, can you have done a couple things different? Yeah. I mean, I think in hindsight, you were probably going to put somebody, body up Grant Hill. Pitino's 1-1 against Duke in the tournament. And Leitner's shot broke, Kentucky hearts. Right? I mean, the buzzer beater 92, Elite 8. It was a shot for the ages. I don't think he's going to be sitting here, right, looking around. And, did he turn around? Did he get his revenge in 2013? Yeah, Louisville beat him by 22. Remember Kevin Ware? That was the Kevin Ware game. So, interesting little nugget. The winner of Pitino-Duke matchup goes on to win the national championship both times. Here we go. Even though Pitino's title was later vacated. That was a great game. Remember Richie Farmer, right? Pelphrey, Woods. That was a hell of a team, man. And then Duke was loaded. St. John's has always had issues with Duke in the tournament. And they've only played a handful of times. But it's just, they played, obviously, second round in 1991, Elite 8. And that was the Billy Singleton game, which to this day rubs me the wrong way where he got teed up. They played in 79. Now, again, for those that were around, that was the, what did they call that? I don't remember what it was. I mean, St. John's upset Duke in that game. It was like not a Black Monday. There were like upsets. Like there were upsets. There were upsets all over the place in that tournament. I think Princeton shocked somebody too, right? In that, but it was now 79 was Indiana State and Michigan State. That was Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. But I'm trying to think, who the hell did Princeton upset? I don't know. I'll come up with Black Sunday. There you go, Black Sunday. So that's what the 1979 tournament, round of 32, the Ninth seeded Penn upset number 1 Carolina 72-71. 10th seeded St. John's upset Duke in North Carolina. And oh, by the way, that 1978 Duke team was stacked. Jaminski, Gene Banks, Jimmy Sparkle. You hear him do the games. Bob Bender, Johnny Harwell. I mean, Jaminski was the center. Jim Sparkle was a guard. You hear him doing the broadcast with Spiro Ditas. That team was Steve Gray was a guard. That team was unbelievable. So there's history, but not history. But Duke has gotten the better. The games that I remember, the 1990 game was 76-72. That game was brutal. That was a brutal loss for me. It really was. 91, Duke was just stacked as well. And we'll see. And everyone, it's funny too, because if you go to research it, it's already been forecasted Duke will beat St. John's. You can look on all these different, the way they break down these games and simulate all these games. But, I'm gonna ride with St. John's tonight, guys. I got to. All right, gonna start wrapping it up. By the way, DV says too soon to kiss in the showers for baseball. Correct. Exactly. Let's not, blank. All right. Enjoy the games tonight. Back in the saddle on a Monday. We'll have some show lineups and announcements to make as well. Subscribe, like, comment to the channel. You guys are the best little rapid fire hour in the books on this What the Frig Friday edition of On Cue. Always appreciate my good friends, our sponsors at Fresh Roasted Coffee, Three Brooks Bourbon, Get Ready with Tea, and of course, Played Against Sports. You guys have a wonderful sports weekend. Enjoy the games tonight, and then obviously we got the Elite Eight over the weekend. Maybe I come back on the air on Monday, a happy camper. We will see how it plays out. But as always, this has been a Friday edition of On Cue right here on SR 1029 FM The Game, part of the Coastal Sports Digital Network. Rich Quinones here. You guys have a good Friday. Have a better weekend. We'll talk to you Monday, as always, from 4 to 6. Hasta luego, buen día.